holidays where people get, multiple days off, and it's kind of like the big ones. And one of those is Chuseok, and the other one is Solal. And so we're actually coming up right now in a few weeks on Solal, which is one of the big ones.
And one of the hardest to pronounce.
It is really hard. Like sometimes in English it's spelled with an N in it, like Solnal, but then there's no N.
That's the weird thing is that, I think it's because it's the Nal is the day, so it's the day of the Sol with the New Year is Sol Nal, but people don't pronounce the N so much. I'm always confused.
Same.
It's the kind of word when you say to Koreans, they're like, what?
Yeah.
They're like, Sol Nal.
It's like
That's
roll
exactly what I just said.
Yeah, exactly. And this one is, most people watching probably wouldn't recognize, like, oh, what is that? That sounds like something I've never heard of. More commonly known in the West, Lunar New Year. So it's basically the new year for the lunar calendar. But yeah, that's it changes every year when exactly it falls, because the lunar calendar and the Gregorian calendar don't line up exactly, but it's always sometime around late January, early February.
Super quick this year, no? Isn't it more like
I think so.
half February usually?
First week.
Yeah.
It's first week of February this time, isn't it? Yeah.
And I think, fun fact, some older Korean generations still follow the lunar calendar for their birthdays, like my mother-in-law. Yeah. So every year my mother-in-law's birthday changes. So
does she know when it is though? Because my father-in-law's the same, and he never knows when his birthday is. Like the wife has to say.
I'm gonna have to plead the fifth. I don't know when. My life keeps me honest on those, but my excuse that I don't know is always, well, it changes every year. How could I be expected to know?
And I mean, does she know?
I think she knows. Yeah.
My father-in-law doesn't even know when his birthday is. Like literally, like I know a few times it's happened. My mother-in-law said, "Oh, it's your birthday, like next week," and he'll be like, "Who's?" Like if we're in the car, right? Like he has no idea.
They
it's
don't
his
give
birthday.
a shit, right? And they have like two birthdays also, like the lunar birthday and the real one. And they don't know which one they believe in. They're always confused by themselves.
Then you've got January 1st as well. It's another birthday.
Do you know their names?
No, I have no clue. do you mean
your in-laws?
Nah.
Do you know your in-laws' names?
I know my mother-in-law's name.
Same. I know my mother-in-law's name.
Yeah, what is it?
Also, I hope we can get
No idea.
eventually on this show enough like text so we can have a little button here I can hit, and then it'll slap the word racist over one of their faces. Because when Alfie just said they have their lunar birthday and their real one, racist.
Like a sound bug.
Racist.
I didn't even realize he said that at all.
It wasn't racist.
their real birthday and then the fake one that they just don't know what is that.
I mean, to be fair, like they have like some identity crisis sometimes. It's like, like we talk about Chinese New Year or Lunar's New Year, but it's like it's from China, and like why do Korea follow the Chinese calendar? And like this lunar birthday also comes from China. So, and you know how much they hate sometimes talking about China and being part of China. So
Only talking about
it's
it?
like, huh?
Only talking about it.
I mean, yeah.
Sorry.
Yeah. No, I know. Cheers to that.
Cheers.
To that.
Cheers.
But yeah, that's the holidays we're talking about. So that's coming up, and there's a few reasons it's big here. One is one of the main kind of activities around Solal is it's a holiday that really the primary focus is the ancestral rites, what they call Jesa here. It's a ceremony where typically everyone goes back to their hometown because that's typically where the ancestors were partially buried, the graves are, and the families hold a big ceremony to honor their ancestors. And so I think in the West we hear about it more commonly now in the context of during Lunar New Year in China. You'll hear news stories about these traffic jams on like these huge mega freeways where people are stuck for multiple days trying to get back to their hometowns. Obviously, in those Chinese megacities, there's the movement of people into the countryside is more extreme, but it's a very similar phenomenon here in Korea for Seoul as well. You have up to like, I read a stat from a few years ago, up to like 70% of the country is on the move during the 3 days of Solal, going home to their hometowns and then coming back. So you get the same sort of effect. Here's an image actually of out leaving Seoul, the traffic all trying to get through, the toll, not toll gate, but there's a I guess it's a toll gate to come in and out of the city. So it's a
Yeah.
toll gate to come into Seoul, but then coming out, they're all going through that and then going onto the highways. So you get the same sort of traffic jams. One kind of stat is the two biggest cities in Korea are Seoul and Busan in the south. Typically, normal day, it takes around 3 hours to drive, and it's very regular during the Solal period on the first day when people are going down and the last day coming up. That 3 hours can stretch to 8 hours because it's just bumper to bumper on the roads.
Absolute nightmare.
Have either of you ever done any traveling in Korea during Solo? I have
Yeah.
not. I've always
think-
stayed local.
The worst one that I've done was last year, I think, during, I forgot if it was Chuseok or Seollal, but we went to Yosu. Do you know what that is?
It's right at the bottom, isn't it?
It's like
Yeah.
even further than
Yeah,
Busan. I mean, it's
yeah.
like it's on the south west coast.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's like super far, and there was like so much traffic.
Did you drive?
Yeah,
Ooh.
like we did like try to do half with my father-in-law, but it was more
You
fun
didn't-
me.
You didn't want to take the risk.
No, I did more driving.
And that's what I'm saying. You
Yeah,
didn't want him to drive.
But he was like super stressed at first, and then he started trusting me a little bit more.
Oh, you're driving his
It
car.
was the test.
Yeah, his car.
Ah, right.
It was the test. Oh, this foreigner can handle the
Yeah,
the
right.
Solo traffic. I guess he's all right.
Yeah, it took us like I don't know, like even like on a normal day going to Busan by car takes like I don't know 4 or 5 hours easily,
Right.
and it probably took us like 8 hours to go down
Ah, okay.
Yeah. On a good day, it can take like 3.
on a good day.
So that's the thing, and it is like 8 on a. It's like crazy how big
Yeah,
the traffic can get. And it's not just that; it's the competition. They say it's almost like a rush for intercity bus tickets, the plane
Yeah.
tickets to different domestic airports. It's like everyone's on the move.
so on the other side is the all those car living to see their families. You get to see Seoul with almost no cars for a few days.
True.
Yeah, it's really good.
It's really good. Yeah.
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 So peaceful.
So one interesting thing I think is, to understand kind of the impact of why Solal is such a big thing, Solal is such a big thing, is the holiday landscape. We mentioned there's two big ones, Chuseok and Solal. Both of those are multi-day public holidays, but it's important to kind of understand how holidays work in Korea. So typically in Western countries, you have, a chunk of public holidays, maybe like I said 10 to 12. And then you typically have a fairly large amount of vacation days if you're working kind of a salaried full-time job. You typically have some amount of vacation time. Korea is a little bit different. Even though people may have vacation days, it's really not the norm, although it is changing, for people to take more than 2 or 3 days off at once. It's like I was talking when my wife and I used to live in America. Her best friend was going to come visit us, and she came I think she took Thursday, Friday off, maybe Wednesday, Thursday, Friday off, stayed Saturday, and left Sunday. And I asked my wife, why wouldn't she just take the Monday, Tuesday, and, Saturday, the whole week, and then leave? And she's like, oh, it doesn't work that way. Even though she has the vacation days, it's just, you can't request a whole week off like that. And that's kind of the culture. So having this public holiday where you already have 3 days off, it's like a big thing because it's just one of the only times in the year where you don't have to like super awkwardly ask for time off, you just have it.
But you're not allowed to, if you have like Chuseok, if the public holidays is Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, for example, you also can't just take the Thursday, Friday off.
Yeah.
Using your vacation days, they won't have it.
Yeah, it's like
Unless you play the foreigner card.
Exactly.
Ah,
A lot of the
company's
things I think
sweet.
there's no rule, right? But it's like if you're the typical thing is like you'll just get it's just
Yeah.
you wouldn't do it. So
When I used to work at my old company, like I always wanted to go home for like 1 week every year,
Yeah.
but it was the same situation. Like everyone in the company would only take off maybe like in summertime, like maybe the Wednesday, Thursday, Friday off or something. Like it's very weird to take a full week off. Like bigger companies, it's normal, but like our company was a small, like old school kind of thing. But I'd always book my flights anyway, like before asking my boss. And I'll just like, because I didn't really like the job that much. It was like, I would always just go in to speak to him and I'd be like, can I get the week off? And like, if he was against it and it was just, quitting was always my backup plan. I was just like, this is the one way I'm like, going to quit and it'll give me some like a reason to get out anyways.
yeah.
But he would always make me feel super guilty about it. And he would say, Koreans only take 3 days off. And but I'm like, obviously I had to like, because I'm working at a Korean company, you have to it's like give and take. I have to like follow the customs and stuff of that company, but they also, if he wants to hire a foreigner as well, then he has to like accept some of our
Definitely.
demands. So it was kind of a bit of a balancing act half the time.
Definitely. And it is changing. I mean, that the kind of culture, the work culture we're describing is the legacy of, you know, before globalization and global companies being everywhere. And I think now, slowly, as more global companies come in, you know, I work for the Korean arm of a global company, and, you know, the company will give everyone in the company at holiday was 2 weeks off, and the Korean employees got it also. And so now Korean employees, you know, potentially are getting to see that happen when they work for a global company, and, you know, that's how those kind of ideas spread. People start to realize, oh, it can be this way, and then they're less satisfied at other companies. But it is, I think, definitely more conservative companies, very much that style still.
Yeah.
How about you? You're working for a Korean company, although in the tech industry, which is a bit more progressive. What's the typical, like around Seoul, around Chuseok, that kind of thing? Maybe not for you. We know you just went for 10 days. Maybe you have the foreigner card, but typical Korean employee.
So what I would say, on a little like quieter voice than some of the hosts around that table, what I would say.
Is it too loud?
I'm trying to adjust the sound, you know, but if we could like reduce a notch, like a little bit on the middle part. I got some feedback from the chat, that's why I'm trying to adjust. Yeah, so my experience as a Korean worker, foreigner worker in a Korean company, is that I think it depends. You know, I mean, I work for, it's kind of not a startup, but it's a rather small company. So, and our boss is pretty flexible. So I guess if you negotiate with him, and on a few like rare occasions, I'm sure you can get a full week, even during Chuseok or Seollal, depending also on what the project you're working on. If you don't have anything to do, I mean, in our field of work, there are very often some, you know, gap time where you don't have any projects. So, I mean, I'm pretty sure I've seen people like taking a full week off or more. So no, I think it's all right. But for sure, you know, everyone has this little stress to upload their vacation. Like we have the intranet where you have to put the number of vacation day, and normally you even have to write a reason. You know, it's like a mandatory field, but I never put anything because I feel like, well, my reason is taking a break, you know?
Yeah.
I don't have a reason to give to go on vacation, but no, I would say we're on the flexible end.
I think it's changing. So in my role, I work with a marketing agency in Korea, and actually just yesterday, the Korean marketer that I work with, she on our weekly call told me, you know, just so you know, I'm going to be taking the next 2 weeks off, and it was very like you could tell she was almost nervous to tell me, and she's like, so if you need me, and she tried to put qualifiers on how, you know, I'll be on the call next week if you really need me, and, you know, I'll be around if, and it was so interesting, you know, because it was almost like this, like holding the breath, like is the client going to be upset that I'm gone for 2 weeks? And I kind of laughed and told her, like, please don't come on the call next week. Like, I'm so happy you're taking 2 weeks off, because a lot of companies don't, you know, that's more people doing it is how it changes. But it was funny because it was just you could tell the nervousness of telling a client you're going to be gone for 2 weeks. It was like petrifying.
Could you
Right.
imagine having 2 weeks off in Korea? Like, it just would never happen. Like,
And that one also
Yeah.
a foreign-owned. It's a Singapore-owned
Yeah.
company, so it's it's a little smaller, so it's a bit more flexible.
yeah.
But
But I mean, yeah, for a normal Korean company, I just couldn't imagine it ever happening. Like 1 week is like amazing. Like 2, wow.
yeah,
But yeah,
And-
it's slowly changing though.
it actually brings up an interesting point when we were talking about covering Seoul now. It's some of the things that we spoke about with, you know, Christmas being the big one for us in the West. About you know, when we say the big one, I think it's really common. People look forward to it. You know, it's like as you get closer to Christmas, you would really start to like get excited. You have activities. You're gonna have time off, see family. There's presents. There's tradition, and it's mostly, I think, a positive thing for most people. They're just really looking forward to it.
Right.
And an interesting thing in Korea is I think there's not necessarily the same purely positive expectation around some of the large holidays, because they come, as we said, there's a lot of tradition associated with them, and they come with a lot of obligation to go home, to do these ceremonies, to I think we can show, maybe we have a picture of the ancestral rite table. So it's the jesa, this big ceremony table where you put all this food that are traditional offerings, and you have to make up, this really ornate table. All of that, is work that you have to do. And so I was actually reading that in 2021, one of the newspapers was surveying wage earners, so people with full-time jobs, and they said that like 40% of the people they anonymously surveyed said they actually would prefer to not have to go home for Solna because of the expense of buying the tickets and all the obligation that comes with it. It's not 3 days to relax; it's 3 days to do things.
I do not believe that 40%. I'm sure it's much higher. I've never seen a Korean wanting to go home.
So I was surprised to find out about this actually yesterday when I was talking to my wife. She was telling me this, but I never really thought about this. I thought it's like Christmas for us, we're kind of happy to see the family.
Yeah, I love it. Like, I know at the bar before Solal or Chuseok, I'll often speak to customers, like, ask them, like, what you doing? And they'll be like, oh, yeah, I'm going home. And I'll ask them, oh, it sounds good. And they'll be like, nah. Like, they just very honestly, I think it is because of they know it's not like back home where maybe our family lives maybe like 2 minutes away.
Yeah.
For them, like, a lot of the families are, like you say, are from, like, Busan or different cities, and everyone comes to Seoul to work, so it's such a hassle because everyone's going back at the same time, isn't it?
I guess also one of the reason is Korean have so little holidays, then when they do have some, they just would rather prefer to stay at home and do nothing rather than seeing families and stuff.
And like the thing is that one of the reasons why a lot of like women and even guys as well around like 30-year-olds really hate it, because when they go and they see their grandparents, it's just constant questions like when you get married, when like when you're having a kid or what you do. Like, it's just constant, like.
I'm so happy you brought that up, Lewis. You don't know this, but we found there was actually an article that was published that I found in an English newspaper, and it was a kind of a game. They were saying a game that you can play at Solnal, and it's ranking the questions you'll get asked by your family, and it's saying you should tell them that if they, for every time you ask, this question gets asked, they have to pay you money. It's kind of a joke. And so, Valentin, you want to read off some of the top questions that the families ask young 25, 35-year-olds around the holidays.
Right.
Apparently, the first questions are about like college. Which college will you go to? When will you finish? Then it's about job. Did you find a job?
Yeah, that one. Like, my brother-in-law used to get that all the time. Like, and
I'm surprised the first one is not like when will you get married and when will you have baby?
Well,
that's the
Look
the
at
top
the dollars.
one.
It gets more expensive. I think it's the more.
Okay, I see. Oh, when will you have your second child? Yeah. That's the most expensive
I think
one.
my favorite's in the middle there, the $200 question. Shouldn't you move to a bigger company?
Oh my god! Shouldn't you lose some weight?
Yeah. Oh my god! Like.
Yeah. So everyone who's kind of maybe confused, this list of questions is funny to us because this is honestly the kind of thing that our wives would tell us about, or we would see firsthand if there was like younger cousins or something. The older generation, it just has to do with that kind of Confucian, the way elders and youngers relate to each other. It's like everything is about your place and how are you moving forward in your life and all the rungs of society. And so there's kind of expectations at each age level that this is where you should be. Why aren't you there yet? And it's not always asked in a negative way. And a lot of times I think that the family members really are asking in a caring way, but they don't necessarily realize that even the most caring way of asking, like, when are you getting married? For someone who's worried about how old they are and not meeting someone, it's like this. It's even if they really honestly care about you, it's just stress. And did you get any of those? Did you get as the foreign in-law? Did you ever get any of these questions from you?
Not really. I've got whenever I go to see my on my mum's side, like they're both of the families live in Daejeon, but like when we go in the morning to her dad's side, and it's very like traditional and normal, and then in the afternoon we go to like my wife's mother's side. It's so funny because like we'll talk for a little bit. And then after about maybe 10 minutes of eating a little bit, the grandma she just goes into the other room and starts playing Go, the card game. Literally, we travel all the way down to Daejeon to see her maybe twice a year, and she just goes and literally says hi and then buggers off and goes away.
That's good.
Like, so they're not they're really chilled out. They
Yeah.
don't really. Luckily, like my wife's never had that pressure. Even
Yeah.
before we got married, like questions all
My
the
other
time.
family was pretty good. I got it once. We were at one of, I don't know if it was Chuseok or Seollna. It was a few years ago, right after we moved to Korea. Or it might have been when we were visiting, we lived in the US. And my wife was off on the other side of the house talking to the other part of the family members. And I was sitting with some of the aunts. Like, Korean is not great, but it was enough when you're drinking to kind of chit chat about basic stuff. And I asked my wife to I'm like, I'm pretty sure they're asking me when we're going to make a baby. And that was what they had been asking me, kind of like, we had drank enough and we were comfortable, and they were just like, oh, you've been married this long, when are you having a baby, when are you having a baby? And it was funny, they didn't mean anything bad by it, but it is true, it was like, I think in the West, maybe you would have like a quirky relative who might ask that kind of question, but it wouldn't be normal. And here it's almost like, everyone has free game to ask like really invasive personal questions.
Right. Yeah, there's no boundaries.
Me, I had different experience over the years because I had different, especially because of Corona. Also, we cannot meet families anymore like we used to.
Yeah.
So the past 2-3 years now, we just met like the closest. I mean, my in-laws, my parent in-laws, and my wife, and we were just the four of us. But before I used to go to my wife's uncle house, and I was a little bit more traditional. We didn't talk about this, but one of the big part of like Solnal and Chuseok is also the older person like giving money to the youngers. The younger, you have to like the younger, they have to bow in front of the elder to receive some money. And again, we talked about money during wedding last episode, and here we are again talking about money in Korea.
Yeah.
Korea for you.
So when I used to go to those, it was a little bit different, and to my surprise, I was always invited even before I got married, because normally if you're not married, you're not really supposed to go to, you're not part of the family yet. So but I used to go, and they always like felt nice because as you know, here we don't have our family here, so we don't have our Christmas, and we sometimes it feels good to be in the warmth of. I mean, I never felt, for me, it was never like something like a burden to go, and it was always cool. And the uncle like gave me money. I was like, the first time that I got like pocket money from someone in Korea, I was like, I'm 30 years old.
But I'll take it.
When you were 30, that's I'm jealous.
Yeah.
So at some point, just to kind of explain, so as you said, the youngers bow to the elders. And I don't think it's just a Korean thing. I know in America, I had Chinese American friends who would always talk about their red envelope. So I think Chinese culture, they get a red envelope. I don't think it's red here. But it is. I know a thing about living here. But anyway, there's a moment where you go from being young enough to bow and get money, and then 1 year all of a sudden you're told, oh no, you don't get to bow anymore. Now you're bowed too, and you have to start giving money. And I had that transition in Korea where. Like, when I first came in my mid-20s, we'd bow to the grandma and get, $20. And then a few years later, the younger cousins were like now like 5. And my wife's mom came and said like, oh, this year, you're going to have to give money. And we're like, wait, hold on. My wife always knew that was going to happen. And I was like, hold on. I forgot that happens at some point. This is the gravy train's over.
Right. I'm not coming anymore.
Yeah. But it was fun. It actually felt good, I will say. It was fun to be on the other side too. It wasn't a lot of money, they're 5 years old. It's like a $5 bill. But it's fun to be the one they're bowing to, and then they're so happy when you give them a little envelope. So I think it was actually almost, like you say, you're 30 years old, getting like $20, even $50. Like, this is nice, but it's almost more satisfying to give $5 or $10 to a little kid who just, to them, it's like the coolest thing in the world to get $10 from their foreign uncle. So that was pretty fun.
Right.
Yeah. Take your word for it. I'll keep getting money as much as I can, as long as I can.
You mentioned something earlier, Valentine, about how, and I think it was a good point, because of the lack of potentially being able to take vacation, a lot of, especially younger Koreans, might see Solnal or Chuseok as an opportunity to take a vacation. And actually, I was reading about this. The stats are a little older. It was from 2016, but I'm sure the trend has only continued, that Solnal is changing in Korea. And although the number of people that travel is about the same, they said the number of people who are traveling to go overseas has gone up consistently.
Yeah.
So the younger generation is now just kind of seeing it as like, I'm not tied to work the same way, my life isn't my work. I want to go out and see the world. I want to travel. And so they said in like 2016, about 630 Koreans traveled overseas for Solmao, and that had gone up 16% year over year. They were talking about certain travel companies saw bookings to like Hawaii go up double. And that was, they said it's a trend they're starting to see the younger generation, which I think to me, I think it's a good thing in the sense that like I'm glad the younger people are able to do that.
Yeah.
But you also wonder like, what does that mean for traditions and stuff?
Right.
What does that mean for 20, 30 years from now? Will things like going back to the hometowns,
The thing is,
just disappear?
because a lot of the time, like Koreans can only see their grandparents those two occasions, isn't it? You know what I mean? They don't go any other time of the year. So like if they go on holiday during Chuseok, for example, they probably won't see like their grandparents for like maybe a whole year or whatever. Like so it's a weird situation. I mean, I just for me I can't imagine only seeing my family twice a year. Like obviously it's about the same amount I see my family and I live overseas. It's because I can understand it. For example, China. You were saying earlier about they'll travel. It takes like a whole day to get there and stuff. Whereas here, if you travel to Busan, like you said, it only takes 3 hours on a normal day. So I don't understand why Koreans don't see their family during the whole year as much. I don't know. Just it's something I've always wondered. For example, my wife never goes to see her grandparents like any other time except Chuseok or Sola. For me, I just couldn't. I don't know. It's a weird one for me.
I know I used to say to tell this to my wife also is that I wouldn't mind seeing my in-laws more often. I mean, we especially with Corona these days, we really use it. I mean, they use it as an excuse sometimes. Oh, don't come to see us very often. Like her dad wants to keep how can I say he works for a big company, so he doesn't want to be badly seen by his colleague if like he's inviting like his daughter all the time at home and like going out and doing stuff. He's like it's getting better, the situation is getting better, but at the time it was the less people you meet the better it was.
Right.
But yeah, I used to tell her like I wouldn't mind see her parents more. I think we're having a good time every time we meet, and I'm surprised she doesn't want to. Like she's like, oh, it's fine. We meet like once every 2 months, I would say maybe.
Yeah. I know, like, her parents live in Cheonan, right? So
it's like super close, like an hour by train. So.
Yeah. And the thing is, in Korea, I mean, in Seoul, everything takes like an hour to get. It took me like an hour just to get here tonight. So you know what I mean? If it's just a 2 hour or a 3 hour journey, I've always wondered why.
Exactly, and if it's 1 hour by subway, 1 hour in the train, it's different also.
Right.
We go by train in Cheonan, so it's pretty comfortable.
Yeah.
It's interesting because we obviously just bought a place, and one of the biggest factors, even before we bought a place, renting on where we're going to live in Seoul was my wife's family lives on the eastern side of Seoul, and it was really important to her to want to live on the eastern side. I think in part because she knew, even though I was kind of saying, oh, we can look anywhere, because we have I'm from California, public transit isn't very good. It's hard to get around, and I was like, oh, we have public transit, we could go anywhere. It would be super easy to see them no matter where we live in Seoul. But I think she kind of knew about this kind of just, even if we could, we won't. So it was really important to know we should live on Eastern Seoul. We'll actually see them then.
Yeah.
Casually, like they all drop by our place regularly just for an hour to have a coffee in while they're going somewhere else, or we can we'll randomly they'll be near the Costco and say, oh, we're going right now. Do you want to meet us? And I didn't really think about it before, but I think those little things are really valuable. That kind of spontaneous, being able to be spontaneously say, oh, we're just driving by, we're gonna stop by.
Yeah.
Or if we lived on the other side of Seoul, I'm sure it eventually would turn into only once every 2 or 3 months, because it's an hour to get there, an hour back. We'll do it next time. So I think it was really smart of her to
you
do
build
that.
a natural relationship with them, whereas if you only see them twice a year, you really don't feel close to that part of the family. Like my wife, she feels close to her mum's side, but I mean she doesn't. When we go to her dad's side, they don't really speak to each other. There's nothing to talk about or anything, because they only hardly ever see each other.
Yeah.
It's really
it should be the opposite. If you don't see each other very often, you should have a lot to talk about.
Yeah.
I mean, if you don't have that foundation though of if you never saw each other often.
Yeah. The oldest do. Obviously the brothers, because it's her dad and they're like, you know, the brothers and sisters, they like they've known obviously years, they're brothers and sisters, but you know, it's the cousins and stuff that like, yeah, they don't really feel close at all.
Yeah, I had a similar reaction to you too, Valentin, because I'll clarify with my wife's family. It's the mom side that I think they've done a really good job in that all the moms. There's three sisters, and they've all always lived. They've always, whenever they move, they all move. So they used to live in this neighborhood, and then they all moved to this neighborhood, and all moved to that neighborhood, because I think they know that if they just live clear each other, they'll stay close, and if they all move to different parts of Seoul, they'll But that's that family. My father-in-law's family is from Busan, and it's the same kind of thing where I've definitely met them at weddings and stuff, and we've had a lot of fun actually. Like I think they like the foreigner in the family. I like to drink, and we all hang out, and they're really fun cousins. We don't see them very often because it's. And I've always kind of thought, oh, we could go down there more often. You know,
it can also connect to what we said in maybe the last episode about Korean being so cheerful very often. They always laugh. You say like when you have girls coming to the bar, they are cheerful. I mean, it might not be the case for all the families, but that's also one of the things. Every time I go there, it's like they're so cheerful and happy and having a good time. Even if we were saying like you might like some conversation topics, especially if you don't speak the language sometimes. But it's always a fun time where I have more fun in my. Gosh, I hope my parents are not watching the show. They won't. No, but sometimes I do have more fun with my in-laws than my own parents. I mean, because it's just like they know how to have a good time. And like I might have like super good time with my parents, but sometimes might be also like we might have a fight or we might like have some stupid arguments over something like so ridiculous and like why? But
I thought you said. I'm sorry. I thought you said something else there.
Having some arguments over.
No, over something. I thought.
No. I didn't say what. It's like,
I know exactly what you mean.
Yeah.
I think it's something about watching, like the generation of our in-laws. It sometimes shocks me how much it's like, and I say this in the best way, not a negative way at all. Oh, my wife just commented, they're not from Busan. They live near Busan. Apologies. No, but it's funny. And I say this in the most, in only a positive way. Like my in-laws, the age of that Korean age, I think in the West, in the U.S. at least, like people in their late 40s, 50s, 60s are kind of stuffy. Like they might have fun, but they're kind of, it's like shirts tucked in, just kind of stuffy sometimes.
Yeah.
And maybe they let their hair down metaphorically occasionally.
Yeah.
But I feel like you see that generation of Koreans, and they're acting like high school kids, and in the best way. They're just having fun. They're playing games. They're joking around. They're literally pushing each other, like joking around. Like they just act. Even like older 60, 70-year-old ladies are like they're like schoolgirls, and it's like I think in the West a lot of older people forgot how to have fun when they get older.
Right.
And I know what you mean. You go to a family gathering here, and it's like the uncles are all sitting. It's not a bunch of stuffy old uncles drinking beer and just like no, they're all like. It's just so much fun.
Yeah, and you never have, how can I say, you feel so comfortable. Like, I used to not feel so comfortable when I was going to the in-laws, but they always like wear pajamas and like as soon as they can, they wear like comfortable clothes and they just like lay on the floor and like
especially the older uncles, the older uncles will like get a little drunk and then just pass out on the floor next to the table and then wake up later to come eat again.
Yeah.
And it's just like, this is great.
Yeah. And like you say, some people would pass out and they wouldn't care. They think it's funny.
Yeah.
But fun fact is that I talked to my mom. When I was on vacation, she was mentioning the fact my wedding night at your bar when we had so much fun, and I thought it was like one of the best night that I had. Probably everybody was super happy and I had so much fun. But my mom said that she never saw me like this, and she was like kind of embarrassed to see me like this. And I was so surprised that she never told me this, but
she should see you on other nights.
Yeah, but I was like, but mom, that was so wasn't it fun? And it's like, oh no, be seeing you and your wife like completely wasted, you think that's funny? And she was like not joking at all. I was like, yeah, maybe I forgot what's fun or not. Like, they forgot what's fun, but I mean like I forgot what we consider fun or not, in Korea or other countries.
That stuffy kind of, in America we say it's the puritanical, it's kind of like the religious thing sometimes, that stuffiness of like, and it's just that kind of formalness and stuff.
Right,
I don't know.
Right. Not willing to let it go.
But it's
willing to let it go. Yeah, that's the good one.
Yeah.
And I mean honestly, I could have so many memories pop up like about that. Like I remember there's like little milestones I think you hit too with these holidays. So I remember when I first did Solna with the in-laws, like Valentin said, it was maybe not so comfortable because I didn't know what to expect, and it was like they were all just drinking and having fun. I was kind of not sure if I'm allowed, and it was like gradually over the years, I got more comfortable. And I remember I told Yeji, my wife, oh, I'm jealous. I can't wait till I'm like so part of the family that I can just pass out next to the table. Not pass out, but like lay down when I just feel tired. Because one thing, just clarifying point, you sit on the floor at these gatherings, and foreigners like us who didn't grow up sitting on the floor, our backs start to hurt after
Right.
the floor. Like, you just really want to lay
Yeah.
down. And then a few last year, 2 years ago, it finally happened where we were all drinking and we were having a great time, and then it started to die. Kind of the nights always ebb and flow, so it was an ebb. And some people started to get tired, and the oldest uncle, we're at his house, and he just kind of grabs me and he's like, oh, and he brings me over to just kind of like some pillows on next to the table, and he's like, yeah, lay down, lay down. And I told you afterwards, like, it happened. I got to, because they're like, because all the little
Part of
cousins,
the family
all the
now.
little cousins. Well, the thing is, all the little cousins when I first came 8 years ago were little. They're now 10, 11, so they're running around doing kid stuff, and now I'm one of the older relatives. The kids are all doing kid stuff, and now I'm one of the old ajashis who can lay down on the couch and fall asleep in the middle of the family gathering. And then it was great because I woke up an hour later and it didn't skip a beat. They're like, oh, come eat. It's just like, oh, he's back up. There was no like, oh, he's too tired, he has to go home. It was just great to have that milestone of like, I can now fall asleep in the middle of the room and no one thinks it's weird.
I'd be interested also to know your opinion on something. I don't know if we have more time to talk about this. Did you had something else on this subject before we move on? Or?
Oh yeah. Why don't you go ahead and we can just talk. We can wrap it up with those few other traditions with the pictures.
Oh, you wanted to?
Yeah, I think maybe we can just give a little more insight. So when we talk about Solna, like we mentioned the ancestral tables, the jesa, a few other kind of fun things to know about. There's obviously the bowing. Another one is there is a game. I'm going to say this wrong, and my wife is going to give me crap for it. It's Yunori or Yunori.
Yunori?
It's one of those, like, it's an in-between sound, right? Like kind of an N, kind of a T. Yunori.
Yunori.
So it's a game that you play on Solna, and it has these sticks that have markings on one side, no marking on the other, and you throw them in the air, and depending on how they land, whether or not the markings are up or down, and the number of sticks are up and down, you get points. I don't really know.
It's the kind of game if you see for the first time, you're like, what the fuck is going
Yeah,
on?
you
I've
have no
never
idea.
seen it. Like, I can't believe I've
That
never
is
seen
shocking.
Insane.
Yeah,
That is
yeah,
It's
insane.
shocking, because this is the kind of game where, like, at a department store around Solna,
You guys were
they'll have, like,
making fun of me because I didn't see like Sunday
Okay.
at Tteokbokki
This is crazy, because this is the kind of thing that I'm telling you. I've seen this game at like government events, right? There'll be like a neighborhood party for Solna, and they'll have the game. I don't know how you went. Well, you've been like 10 years. You've never seen.
Yeah, I must just have blinkers on the whole time. Like, I never even.
It's
Yeah.
weird, yeah.
It's literally one of the most common. But anyway, this is the kind of game they play. So it's a folk game. So it's an old Korean folk game. There's a bunch of rules I don't remember because I've only ever played it on Solna, which, as you may have picked up, is a holiday where you get together with all your family and drink a lot. And so I know I've played it a lot. And I
I mean,
remember playing it. I just don't remember all the specific rules.
The rules are easy. It's just like when you throw the small like wood stick, whatever you might call them,
Yeah.
you can advance like your little like pounds to different like to a different number like based on those.
Yeah.
And then it's just like you have like each player have 4 pounds. How would you call it? Those little
Yeah, tokens, I guess. Yeah.
tokens. There are 4 of them, and you have to play strategy because you don't want to get eaten by other player, because if they go above you,
Yeah.
like
Yeah, they move ahead of you.
they jump ahead of you, then they can eat you. So you want to try to save your, and the goal is to go all around the board and to finish the game by like saving your token.
That makes sense. There's also a betting component, because I remember the first time I came to Korea after my wife and I got engaged. It was the second day I was here. It was Solna, and I played Yuknori with all the uncles. And I remember there was piles of $1 bills in the middle of the table, and every time the sticks got down, the dollars changed hands. But I don't remember what the rules were.
They just took all your money.
Yeah. But anyway, we're gonna wrap up the Solna section. Hopefully, I know that was some facts, some anecdotes, but I think it's just interesting to kind of talk about, and I think we all do, the differences on how holidays are approached here in Korea versus our countries, and the fact that there's these whole other worlds of traditions and, you know, ceremonies and all these things that happen where, you know, big parts of the world don't really celebrate Christmas, but they celebrate things like this, and it's just really interesting.
What do you